Hey, what's up guys? Gruz here. I hope you guys are doing well. Well, today I've got a video that is probably going to be a bit slower than, my normal videos. I don't have a script today. I'm just kind of winging it, checking out these old builds of a game that, if you remember a couple years ago, I think it was actually probably 2018 or so, I teased a platformer that I was working on for Mac Plus, and that was called Dangerous Caves. Well, Dangerous Caves just kind of disappeared, into the abyss. I didn't really tell you guys what was going on with that one. So it's just kind of remained a mystery all these years. But today I'm going to rectify that. I'm going to go back. I'm going to show you some of the early builds of the game, kind of walk you through the thought process I was going through when I was creating this game. And I'll tell you what actually ended up happening to this project. And maybe it's something that can still come back after all these years. Who knows? You got to find out. But I'll talk about that in a minute here. First, I wanted to talk a little bit about developing a game for Macintosh Plus, the old 1-bit computers. So these computers do not have any kind of built-in sprites, no collision detection. A lot of the other computer systems had this stuff built in, which made it a lot easier. But here, to develop for Macintosh, you'd have to make software sprites from scratch, which is what many developers did do. But thankfully, this guy, Ingemar Ragnamom, came along and made a game development library called Sprite Animation Toolkit. He really did it for the good of mankind because he gave it away for free. And many games used the Sprite Animation Toolkit as, like their engine for sprites and stuff. This game development library has built-in functions that handle sound, graphics, and sprites, moving them around the screen. It is such a major time saver to not have to reinvent the wheel with this stuff. I mean, if I started making a game for modern computers, I would definitely be using some kind of collision detection engine, like Box 2D or something. But here, on the vintage Mac, System 6, you use Sprite Animation Toolkit, in my opinion anyways. So the Sprite Animation Toolkit came with a few demo projects, and thankfully it did have a platformer example, but unfortunately it did not work on System 6. It would crash every time I tried. But I did end up using some of the code from that example to create my own project, which I code-named Dangerous Caves. I had this thought of making a game where, you just run around these caves and collecting diamonds and stuff. It was pretty generic when I first thought it up. But I wanted to see if it was possible. It's just something that I always wanted to do, I always wanted to try it out myself and see how it would be to make a game for Vintage Mac. So I had made tons of programs in HyperCard, but I never did a real game like in C. I always knew about C, but I didn't really have any resources available to learn how to program. None of my family knew anything about it. We did eventually get the book Learn C on the Mac by Dave Mark. I was a little hyperactive boy, bouncing off the walls. I couldn't understand that. But in college, I did learn some C. I took a couple of C classes, and I gave it a whack here trying to make my own game. So this is what I had after the very first night of programming. I had a guy on the screen. He could walk. I made his sprite in Vress Edit. I did it pretty quickly, but he can jump. He can fall off the edge. At this point, I had a lot of work to do. The physics were way off. The graphics sucked. You could die, start over, and your lives went away. And that was pretty much all that there was to this first one. I was so proud when I had got this actually working. February of 2018 when I made that. Then the next day, I did a lot more. I replaced the stick man with the hero here. His name's Dangerous Guy, but I later found out that, that there's some mobile game, Temple Run, that took that name. So this guy's also Dangerous Guy. It's not the same guy. But anyways, Dangerous Guy was really pixelated at this point. But I did get a door in the game. I got a key that you have to get to unlock the door. And I got a floating platform in the game. Just grab it, and then you just walk right in to the door, and it takes you in. And that's all there was to it. The day after that, I added sound effects to the game. So when you get the key, when you jump, you get the sound effect for jumping and then getting the key. Then the third day of programming, I switched up the level a little bit. I added multiple sound effects, multiple levels, which involved clearing the current screen and redrawing everything. I was excited too because I found out that you can use the Macintosh toolbox to draw on the screen just like Mac Paint with commands. And then on top of that, I went back and added the actual parts that are collision. It was pretty cool. The physics were still really off on this one too. This was like a lot of progress for me at the time. Oh, this is glitched. I can't even pass this part. Still moving me though, like a conveyor belt. Oh crap, I can't get that key, I don't think. Let's try. Oh, nope. So in the next version, I rewrote all of the movement code so it would handle way better. I continued to work on the ground and I cleaned up the character animations a lot. The improvements that I made that day added so much more depth to my platforms. I thought they were pretty cool looking. And then I did the background with a pattern. Whoa. Oh. The next version was more along those lines where I had just tried to figure out how I want the platforms in the actual game. Got the code smoothed out more. It was starting to look more like a real game. Stuff was actually working at this point too. So I get this key right here. And I remember this part right here, these platforms didn't really line up very well. So it was really hard. Oh. So it was really hard to actually get up there. So on the next build was exactly 1 week after I had started the project. And that is when I started making big changes to the game where I added ladders and a real sky. I used a bitmap for the background and it worked pretty well. The only problem using bitmaps for the background was that they end up taking up so much space. Some of the stages used patterns for the background, and then some of them used bitmaps. Like this one right here was a bitmap. And this level got changed around a lot. And that was it. So this build right here was about a week and a half into the project. I had just completed spikes right here. Here I started using bitmaps for all the backgrounds because it was just like instant. Like if you want to paste a bitmap for the background, it goes really fast. There's no waiting around for it to be drawn or anything. This was kind of a crazy background right here. Oh! And at this point, I also introduced these on-off platforms. It was very challenging, but they were kind of broken. And keep in mind, this whole game worked on a Mac Plus. This is 1x speed right here. It was absolutely playable at this point. Which is also one of the main things that you have to watch out for when you create a game like this for a vintage system like this. It's really hard to keep it like optimized so that you don't waste any of the CPU because you only got so much power. And these old Macintosh Pluses are not good with speed when it comes to graphics. They're very slow. This was a really tough level. Dang it. So on the last 2 versions of the game, I had added falling platforms that were very buggy. They were extremely buggy. I remember it was so frustrating at the time because I couldn't understand why it wasn't working. I eventually sorted it out, but that's how it goes when you make games, you know. You gotta overcome all these challenges. Like, everything you do, something bad happens. And you gotta figure out how to do it in the best way possible. And also keeping in mind that you don't have that much power to work with. So you gotta do it as efficiently as possible as well. Absolutely challenging. Alright, so let me get over here. I had a little cheat code here for skipping through the stages. I added like a wipe effect here. I guess it's called like a box in. And then here I added falling boulders, which they'll fall from random spots in the sky and then they'll bounce in a random direction once they hit. I thought it was a fun challenge, and then I thought it was neat that they could trigger the falling platforms. But it was just really hard at this point, and they were still glitchy. Like if they were started falling, then you couldn't jump or something like that. It was a tough bug to figure out why that was happening. So then I started implementing a menu into the game, which when you launched it would do that Kill Gruz Games thing, and then you could go into the options. You could actually set your options here. This was before I added the ability to use objects, which I'll show you in a second, but yeah, you'd just configure your keys here to move around. This took me weeks to figure out. Like, it's not a simple process at all. It's way complicated. So then you got easy mode, which is if you have an older Mac, it turns off some of the graphical effects. Start a new game here, and it would take you right to this screen right here. And then I added treasure, which gave you some score. And now you have to press up to go in the doors. And all the animations worked really well at this point. I think I actually ended up breaking them later on. And as you can see right here, like if I had just continued making a game like it is right now, it would have been just fine. But I wasn't happy with this. I thought I could do much better than this. So what I did after this was I pretty much started from scratch again, which was insane, because I think that was actually the death of Dangerous Caves. And this is what happened. I started making a brand new version of Dangerous Caves where you would go through these stages and they would be like multiple rooms connected to make each stage. So I'd have room 1 right here, room 2 right here, and at this point you couldn't even cross. I don't think I had anything done after this. But yeah, I didn't like the way it was going before for whatever reason. I think the code was actually getting a little bloated, and was learning stuff, and then I'd comment it out, and I wasn't sure what I needed, and it just turned into a big headache. So I started over on this version. I took what I could from the original version and brought it over here. And in order to make these stages for the game, at this point, what I would do is I would create the entire thing in Photoshop, and then I'd chop it up into 512 by 342 sections. Actually, I think it was 512 by 320. So I actually kept working on it after that. And this right here is the last version of the code before I stopped working on it. You can see there's so much of this that could be like condensed into its own thing. And you know, these experiments, I considered the original version of Dangerous Caves as a prototype. And when I redid everything, this was going to be like the real attempt at it. So I took everything I could from the original game and I stuffed it all into here. I got rid of all the stuff I didn't need in it. I broke a lot of things. I added a lot of features like bombs, which in this final build, bombs are broken. And you actually need bombs to get past a certain area. I'll show you what I left off with here. Like I said, there's some broken parts of this. So you'd go in here. For some reason, when you're walking now, Dangerous Guy's eyes get all angry. But I was using bitmap graphics for all the backgrounds because it was so fast just to load them in. But it took up so much space where I wasn't sure I was going to be able to finish the game in 800K because I wanted to fit it on an 800K floppy disk. Oh, geez. I changed the death sound, too. I got the key, though. So you can use the key on this door right here. And then here, you would go and get the bombs. The jumping's broken on this. Like, you're not supposed to be, like, walking in the air. Normally, you'd press E to use the bomb, but this specific thing it's broken on here. And I'd have to figure it out. You cross the bridge. Maybe you can blow the bridge up. I don't know. You go up here. Normally, it would stop you here. You have to use the bomb to get through here, but bomb's broken, so don't need it. And then, yeah, you fall down here. This jump right here is a pain in the butt. It's annoying. I shouldn't have done that. Oh, and here's a section that's supposed to be tough. These ones don't move randomly. It's kind of a set path that they take, but they are actually bouncing. It's bouncing down the steps. Like you could put different platforms there and it would bounce off of them. You go down here. You can ride this guy. Oh, that platform is not implemented. Oh, but that is the status of this game. I rewrote it. I broke it. And I got to thinking, what am I doing here with this game? One of the things about making a game for such a small audience of people, like people with vintage Mac, people with not just vintage Macs, but Mac Pluses, is that you really got to think about the type of person that would be playing your game. I'm not so sure that people who have Mac Pluses are looking for a platformer like this. What I'm more leaning towards is that these types of people are collectors. You know, they're into the vintage computer hobby. They want stuff that, you know, can be funny. Like maybe instead of a guy right there, we put a Mac that's got to get through all this stuff. You know what I mean? Make it Macintosh themed, retro computer themed. This has nothing to do with that. This would be a cool game, like if I would have released it back in the 90s, back in the 80s. It's super cool. I love it. I think it's cool. But I'm not so sure people are looking for this. Which is one of the things I wanted to ask you guys today. What do you think? Is this something that you'd want to see finished? I think if I did this again, I would probably go back to the old version and maybe build a level editor or something. And if I did ever go back and finish this game, it wouldn't be for a couple years. Because right now I am very far into another Macintosh Plus game that I think is going to appeal to more of the collector type of people. All that I'll tell you about it right now is that it's inspired by Crystal Quest, kind of inspired by Robotron as well. My new game is going to come out this year for sure. If you follow me on my Patreon, I have given some updates about my new project. I have not shown any gameplay or any screenshots even, but I'm getting very close to that point. And I will talk about it on this channel. I will showcase it once it's done on this channel. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not already. But yeah, the reason I stopped working on Dangerous Caves is because the project got too big. I lost focus. I didn't think it was heading in a direction that would actually be interesting to people. I broke the hell out of it and I left it all broken. And it will take a significant amount of energy to turn this project around. And I just don't know if it's worth it. I don't know if there's an audience out there for a console-style platformer for Mac Plus. And I had so many other ideas of projects that I wanted to work on. I did Mac Ghost right after this. That was like a ghost detector program that I wrote in HyperCard. And then I did Flappy Mac. You guys remember that one? That was cool. And now I am getting very close to showing you guys my new project. But stay tuned for that because it's going to be cool. I developed so many technologies from all the different games that I've made, and they're all coming together for this new game. You're going to love it. So I've rambled quite a bit today. I think I'm going to wrap this video up right now. I want to thank you guys so much for spending some time with me today to check out these old builds of this lost game that I started making. Oh man, I'm probably going to finish it one day. Not going to be like this though. It's going to be much more simple. Probably going to be Mac themed because I love vintage Macs and stuff like that. It's going to be fun. Well, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to my channel and leave a like on this video. It really helps out my videos when you do that. Thank you so much for your time today, guys. Goodbye.